Okay, let me ask you something. Have you ever done any online dating, meeting people online? Have you ever had like a really bad experience? And I'm not talking about a bad experience where you don't get along with the person. I'm talking about just like a bad experience, like you were threatened or you had something that made you, worry about your well-being, leaving that area. Well, I did. I had a really weird situation years ago, and I'm going to tell you about that story right after the intro. All right, so these days, online dating, meeting people online, dating websites and stuff like that. These days, that's pretty common. It's not like a lot of people probably, most people have probably dabbled in meeting people in those, with those type of services and stuff like that. Or if not, they've met them some kind of way online, whether it's even if it's not a dating website, a lot of people have met people on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. It's not that uncommon these days. Now, this story happened back when it was still kind of like this stigma based on, meeting people online. It was back in a time frame where if you did meet somebody, on a website or a dating site or something like that, you guys would get together and come up with your story on how you meet to tell your friends before you go around your friends, because you wouldn't want to admit that you actually met the person on whatever, website you were on. Now, this website I'm talking about, I was on a website. It was called Black Planet. I'm not even sure if this website still exists, but it's a website. It kind of reminds you like a mixture of like a LinkedIn or a MySpace, and there was a dating website component to it also. But you can go there and look for a job. You can go there and just use general social media type stuff, and then they had like a dating area. So I met a woman on this. Well, I say a girl because we were younger at this time. But I met a girl on this website. Let's say her name is Robin. To be honest with you, I don't remember what her name was. But for this story, her name is going to be Robin. So I met Robin on this website and we chatted, on the actual Black Planet website. We chatted for a little while using their little messenger app and everything. And everything was good. She seemed like a really cool person. I seen her pictures and she was cute. So everything, we kind of hit it off, and like after about a day or so, we exchanged phone numbers. And this was back in the time frame where texting was existed, but it wasn't like super commonplace like it is now. So it's like you might text somebody and they may not know how to do it. I think you actually had to pay for messages back then. I don't know. You had to pay like 10 cents per message or something. But anyway, we sent messages a little bit back and forth, and we talked on the phone, and this lasted about 2 or 3 days and kind of got along pretty good. So one day, one of my coworkers at my job, they got a new computer, and I work in IT, so he asked me if I could come over his house and help him set it up. He was like, he just got a new computer, he doesn't know what to do with it other than he got it sitting in his house. Asked me if I can come over his house and set it up, and I was like, yeah. So we scheduled a time for me to come over there. Now, once he gave me his address, I realized that I would be driving through the part of town where Robin lives before I get to his house. So I called her and I was like, look, I'm going to be driving through there. I got to go to my friend's house to help him with the computer. How about I stop, we meet somewhere, public place, somewhere safe, and meet and talk to each other. We get to see each other face to face, lay eyes on each other and stuff like that. She was like, cool. So the closest place I can think of is that there was a mall. There was a pretty big mall close by, and a lot of shopping centers and stuff like that. There was a Best Buy and Circuit City. This was back when Circuit City still existed. So I was like, okay, well, what about we meet in front of Best Buy? Right in front of Best Buy, there was a couple of other stores. So there was just like a big open area that was kind of circled by all of the different stores. So while you could be private, you were never out of eyesight of people because people was all the way all around and everything like that. So she was like, okay, that's cool. So I go there, I'm on my way and I get to Best Buy and I meet her out there. So she gets out the car and she walks over, and she's really short girl. She told me she was 5 feet, and I know 5 feet is pretty short. I don't have anything against it, but sometimes you just don't realize how short someone is when somebody say they're 5 feet until you actually see them in person. When you look, how when you look at a picture of someone, sometimes you'll have an image of how that person look in your head, and it'll be different when you see them in person. Now, I wasn't expecting how short she was going to be. I was like, oh, this is a small girl. So we were talking still, and the conversation was still just as good as it was when we were on the phone and when we were chatting and stuff, and everything was everything was good. And it was like summertime, but it wasn't like too hot outside. So the weather was comfortable. And the way we were situated, I had a SUV at the time, and she was kind of like leaning up against the truck, and I was kind of like standing in front of her, and we were just talking and everything. And everything was going good, And after a while, after about 10 minutes, I started feeling bad because she's just standing out there. So I had opened up my door, the back door to the truck, and helped her up on the back seat. So now she was sitting in the back seat of the truck, but still facing outward, like facing towards me. And then I'm standing, outside of the truck, just, far enough back. She got enough space and everything, but it was a situation where she was comfortable and I can still talk to her and stuff. So we talked for a while, the conversation was good. And then my phone started ringing. Like I said, this was back when not everybody was used to texting yet. So I was actually getting phone calls instead of text messages saying, where you at? And it was my coworker, and that's what he wanted. He was like, where you at? I'm waiting for you, So I answered the phone. I was like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm running a little late. I'll be there in a little bit, because I was only probably like maybe 10 minutes from where he was at. So I told her, I was like, yeah, my coworker, I told you I was going to help my coworker with his computer. That's him calling. I guess we're going to have to cut this short, and I'm going to head over there. And I was like, let's talk again tonight. Maybe we can plan something, And so everything was good. And she was like, yeah. And then how sometimes sometimes it happens, like if you're on the phone or you're about to leave and you do the goodbyes, but then one person starts talking again and just bring the conversation back up. And next thing you know, you're there like another 20 minutes. Well, that's what happened. She started talking again and brought the conversation back up. And we ended up talking for another 20, 25 minutes. My coworker started calling me again. I'm answering the phone. He's like, where you at? My wife is waiting now and all of this it was just like a whole lot of stuff going on. So finally I tell her, I was like, all right, for real, I got to go. My coworker's waiting on me. This is like the third time he called. He knows I'm supposed to come. I told him I was going to be over there. So, this was good. I'll catch up with you when I'm done with him. Maybe we can get back together tonight, or maybe we can plan something for another time, And then she goes into the talking and brings the conversation again. Next, we're talking for another 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Coworker calls again. So this time I was like, all right, for real, this time I got to go, hang up the phone, tell her I got to go. And then she looks me in the face with a serious look on her face and was like, I'm not going nowhere. So I'm looking at her and I'm like, I can't tell if she's playing around with me, if she's joking or what. And I said, yeah, I was like, that's funny, but I got to go. I was like, I got to go catch up with my coworker. He's waiting on me. And she was like, you're not going nowhere. I'm not getting out of this truck. So now I'm looking and I'm like, I'm trying to like, gauge her face to see if she's playing around. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, but her face is straight. She looks completely serious. And I don't know. I'm like, I don't really know her that well. I was like, we had good conversations, but sometimes people have a type of humor that it takes a while to get. And I'm thinking maybe that's the case. Maybe she just has like a certain type of humor that it takes a while to get. And I don't know it yet. But then I'm like, all right, for real, I got to go. I'm like, it's funny, I got to go. And then she like, I'm not going nowhere. I'm serious. You're not going nowhere. So then I just stand there and I look at her for a few minutes and she kind of like motions for me to come closer. And I'm like, what is this about? So I kind of lean in a little bit. And as I lean in, I notice she puts her hand in her purse and she kind of pulls it out a little bit and she's holding something. And she says, you're not going nowhere. You're not going to get me out this truck. And if you touch me, I'm going to cut you. So I'm looking at her like, what in the world? How did this get here? I was like, what in the world is going on now? And I'm looking at her hand and I do see she's holding something. I couldn't quite tell what it was. It wasn't like real big. It looked like something like it could have been like a envelope opener, a letter opener or something like that. It could have been like a box cutter or something. I don't know. It was something that could fit like in the palm of your hand with a little bit of it sticking out the side. But she was holding it and she was looking at me and she was dead serious. So now I'm looking at her because I'm like, okay, now she is threatening me with a, knife or whatever it is she got in her pocket. And I was like, okay, this is completely different. This isn't funny anymore, So I'm sitting there and I'm like, what am I going to do now? And I'm sitting there thinking, what do I do? And I was like, she's so little. I could easily just grab her arm and yank her out the truck, but she's so little. she will hit the ground and be hurt. And I'm like, and that's not what I want to do anyway. I just want her to get out the truck on her own and leave, you know? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, what do you do in this situation? I was like, this is like the weirdest thing, this weirdest experience I've ever had. Never had anything like this happen before. So I'm staring at her for a little while and she says it again. She's like, don't you dare come close to me or I'm going to cut you, you know? And she pulls it out this time. And I'm like, this is insane. And I'm just sitting there looking. And so then I get to the point where it felt like a long time went by. It might have only been like 30 seconds, but it felt like 10 minutes went by. And in my head, I'm just going over all different types of situations, you know, because I'm like, this looks like it's going to be something where I'm going to have to figure out something to do, you know? So I looked over at Best Buy. I was like, maybe I can get security or something. I was like, is that a thing? Could I do that? I'm just thinking of different situations and I'm just sitting there looking. And then after a while, like right when I was to the point where I was like, okay, I got to do something now, she broke and was like, let me stop messing with you. I'm gonna get out the car and let you go. Then she hops out the truck. And as soon as she does that, I don't wait to find out if she was joking. I don't wait to say goodbye or nothing. I slam the door, get in my car and drive off. I don't even look to see where she go. So I drive off and I'm going down the street and I call my coworker and I'm like, okay, I'm on my way now. I'm telling him, you wouldn't believe what I just been through, you know? And he's like, well, you're gonna have to come another day because my wife was waiting on me and we're about to leave now. So he was like, you're gonna have to come another day. And I'm like, okay, all right. Understandable. You know, by this time he had probably been waiting for me for about an hour, you know. So I get down to the end of that street, you know, and I make a U-turn and I come back because I gotta, to get on the interstate to get back home was going back in the other direction. I had to go back past the mall and all of the stores and all of that stuff to get back to the interstate to get home. So as I get past the mall and everything, I started hearing this horn blow. The horn is just brr, 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 brr. So I'm driving, I'm not thinking nothing of it. It's a lot of traffic out there. So, you know, I'm thinking it could be somebody blowing at anybody. So I pull up a little further and I see out of the rearview mirror, I can see lights flashing behind me. And I look and I see a car behind me with the headlights flashing on and off. I don't know who it is, you know. So I just kind of ignore it. And then I drive up a little further and I get to the stoplight. And right after the stoplight was when I would turn to get on the interstate. I get to the stoplight and this car pulls up beside me and somebody's yelling at me. And I can't make out what they're saying, but I can hear them. And I look and it's her. And she's like motioning for me to roll down my window. And I'm looking at her like, no, I'm not. I'm done with you. I was like, you're forgotten. I'm not rolling down my window. I don't have anything else to say. So then she yells, I forgot my phone in your car. I forgot my phone in your car. And at first I thought she was lying, you know, because I figured she might have just trying to get me to stop. I never knew why any of that happened, but I figured maybe she was trying to get me to stop for some reason. So I look in the back seat and sure enough, her phone is sitting in the back seat. But I'm like, I'm not stopping to give her this phone. So I reach back there, grab the phone. I roll down the window on my passenger side, which her driver's side, she was on that side of the street. Her driver's side window was already rolled down. And I just chucked the phone out of my window through the passenger side and landed inside her car. And just then my light turned green and I took off and got on the interstate and left. Never hear from her again. But that was a crazy story. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you? And if you did, how did you handle it? Because I was at a loss at what to do, because there's one thing if I'm dealing with something like that and it's a man that I'm dealing with, you know, with a man, you know, you can go to blows with him or whatever. But like a woman, I was at a loss. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? You know, I didn't know what to do in that situation. But I'm curious, how would you handle that if that happened to you? And ladies, if you ever were in a situation like that where it was reversed, where you was in my place and it was a guy that was doing that to you, and which I kind of feel like that would probably be more likely than my situation, how would you handle it? Or if that has happened to you, how did you handle it? So that was my story. Thank you for listening to my story. And if you got any stories you want me to tell you, go ahead and check the description down below. I got a link to my questions website. The website is DLJonesBooks.com/questions. Go ahead and go there. You know, type in your story. Maybe I'll tell your story on my channel. And if you want to hear more stories like this, go ahead and click the like button, share it with your friends, click subscribe. Make sure you know you're in for all my stories, because I got a bunch of them and I'm just going to be telling them all. So go ahead. I hope you come back, and thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. You made it to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. while you're here, why don't you check out that video right there, or maybe that one right there. And while you're at it, go ahead and click my image in the middle there and subscribe to this channel.